Hi investors, it's Tom here, your local Manchester guy, and I'm here with Neeraj from
Hi, Tom.
Luxury Hub. Hey Neeraj, thank you very much for joining us.
No, it's glad to be here.
And we spoke about Neeraj, you probably heard his name before. We've been talking about HMOs in the last few weeks. So now we're going to go more in depth. Neeraj has agreed to tell us more about HMOs. We're going to be doing a few videos with him. So for those who don't know you, Neeraj, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I have a business called Luxury Hub, which has been investing and developing HMOs since 2000. So we're 23 years in the business. And we'd like to consider ourselves reasonable experts.
Great. So to start, let's start with the basics. And just tell us very quickly, for those who maybe don't know yet, what is an HMO?
Good question. So what does HMO stand for? HMO stands for House of Multiple Occupancy. And essentially, if a house has 3 or more individuals living together in one household, but they're not related, then that would be considered an HMO by most councils in the UK. There are some variations to that rule, but essentially if there's a shared kitchen, a shared living area and possibly shared toilets or not shared toilets, those individuals would be deemed living in a house of multiple occupancy.
So what would you say is the main difference between the HMO and a buy-to-let, which we all know?
Yeah, a buy-to-let is a really good question, is where you've got one single AST, you've got one single assured short hold tenancy, whereas in an HMO, each of the individuals would be living in the property under a separate short hold tenancy. So one of the differences, each of the individuals would need a separate rental agreement with the landlord.
So instead of renting the whole house, we're renting room by room?
Yeah, room by room is rented and shared facilities. That's one of the differences. One of the other differences is in a single let, usually the tenant will pay the bills, whereas in an HMO, the individuals would pay the bills. They wouldn't pay the bills, it would be the landlord paying the bills.
I see, so you have a bit more costs, but you're getting more rent. So can you tell us, because we all think HMO sounds great, it's a great strategy, but what are the dangers? What do we need to look out for? Are there any issues with HMO? Are there any problems with HMOs?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. I know you want to keep this video really short, so let's talk very briefly. If I categorised the dangers or disadvantages, I would summarise it in 4 areas. I would say number 1 is regulation, licences and compliance. That's a big danger if it's not managed rightly. Second is financing difficulties. Most people underestimate the amount of cash that's needed. You need to have a substantial, larger amount of cash with an HMO, whether it's on the deposit or the refurbishment. The vetting and letting and tenant management is a massive danger. There's 4 different categories of tenant, for example, and you should never mix them. I don't think we've got time to go into that, but so vetting, letting and tenant management. And the 4th one I would say is not being able to get a mortgage or leveraging debt, so you don't get the real benefit, which we're going to talk about, which is increased return on investment.
Right, so it sounds like there's quite a bit to think about and quite a few risks really. So why should we be looking to, or why should anybody be looking to invest in an HMO?
It's a really good question. I mean, if you do an HMO the right way, then you will have substantial benefits, massive benefits, I should say. And it's one of the reasons that I can actually take the time to do this today with the various portfolios I've built up over the last 20 years. I would say as long as you've got, I think it's important to talk about the risks that we talked about, is as long as you've got a good investment management house who'll take care of the mortgage, which I know you now have the ability to do, even in the current interest rate climate, Tom, and you have a very good property management company, those risks will not be seen. They'll be taken care of. But setting that aside, what are the pros of investing in HMOs? I would say higher rental yields, which is a higher return on investment because you've got a higher amount of cash coming in. You know, an example, a single let to an HMO in most towns, you're looking at least 100 to 200% increase on rent. So that means if you're getting £100 in a single let, you could be getting up to £300 in an HMO. Resistant to market shifts, and you're spreading your risk. If you've got one tenant who doesn't pay the rent, which very, very rarely happens, if you've got good property management or an empty room, you've still got 75% if it's a 4-bed property of income coming in. So you've really, you reduced your risk, and you would have seen that in the COVID climate or in the current climate where a lot of people are struggling. And the final area I would say is it helps accelerate your returns, and you can streamline your portfolio in terms of having more return pound for pound on the money you've invested in property.
Okay, so there are risks, but there are a lot of pros, and obviously higher yields and better return for your money, which is what every investor wants. So we want to keep these videos quite short. I know probably a lot of people would like to know more about this. Neeraj, would you mind, if anybody's interested, to send them more information?
Yeah, I could send a couple of pages on the pros and cons of HMO investment, putting a little bit more detail into what we've talked about. Yeah, happy to do that.
That would be great. So if anybody's interested, just send us a message on WhatsApp and we'll send you more details on this. So we're going to be doing more videos with Neeraj. And Neeraj, what do you think we should do next?
I think we should dig a little bit deeper and look at the top 5 mistakes that people make when investing in HMOs. I see it time and time again. I'm probably thinking of 7 or 8, but I could probably categorize them into 5. That would be a really good place to move forward.
Great. So stay tuned. Next video will be coming up soon. And thank you very much,
Thanks,
Neeraj,
Tom,
for joining us. We'll see you next time.